Good afternoon, and welcome. My name is Joseph White. I'm a 1996 U.S. Air Force Academy graduate and a Republican precinct leader and volunteer from Colorado Springs. As a military officer, I took very seriously my oath to defend the Constitution, but I was also taught to avoid publicly engaging in politics. So it wasn't until I separated from the military that I finally took a critical look at the political landscape. That was when I first heard of Congressman Ron Paul, and his record on the issue struck me as almost too good to be true. Among the usual broken campaign promises of his peers, he was a Republican representative who actually voted against deficits and tax hikes consistently, who understood the importance of truly free markets, and he honored the same oath to the Constitution that I had. And I recall 10 years ago wishing that he would run for president. Words can't express what an honor it is for me to speak to you today and introduce our future President of the United States, Dr. Ron Paul.
Coming up. How are we going to do in Colorado? Let me introduce my wife Carol down here. And a granddaughter Linda. Carol and I will have a celebration tomorrow. We'll have been married 55 years as of tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming out. This is our third stop today, and there's been a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of optimism, but also a lot of concern. We have a lot of concern about this country, but we also know that if we do the right things, we can get out of this mess rather quickly. Now, I've been saying that we got into this mess because, we overspent and overborrowed and overprinted money and overregulated. And I can't understand how those in charge in these last 4 years thought that the solution would be to spend more, tax more, regulate more, and print more money. It doesn't seem to be working. So the alternative is to go in a different direction. For the last 100 years or so, our country has gotten very careless about the rule of law. To me, the rule of law is obeying the Constitution. An old-fashioned idea, but one worth reviving. So if we got into trouble by avoiding the Constitution, I think that if we all of a sudden went back to the Constitution, it would take us about a year to recover. Instead, it's dragging out. It's into the fourth year now. There's no reason to think that next year is going to be any better than this year unless we change our ways. That means we have to change the role of government. We don't have to believe that the government should spend the money. The people should be spending the money, not the government. But also, I believe our country in the last 100 years has lost confidence in the cause of liberty. We became, content to, enjoy the fruits of freedom, and freedom does produce a lot of wealth. But then we got into the business of just forcibly redistributing wealth and forcibly, getting advantages from the government, forgetting about where production comes from, where wealth comes from. And now, what have we done in the last 30 or 40 years since there's been nothing sound about our currency? What we have done is we have consumed our wealth, we have bankrupted our country, and we cannot sustain it. We have to change our ways. My suggestion for changing our ways immediately, I think in the first year we could cut the budget by $1 trillion. And I've argued the case that the easiest place in the world to cut the spending, because there are so many special interests involved, but we can develop priorities. And I think the top priority for cutting is the money we waste overseas. We've had essentially perpetual war going on for many, many years, and unfortunately, the executive branch have made all the decisions. They don't come to the Congress, they don't come to the people. Sometimes they go, as a real insult, they go to the United Nations to get permission. That is no good. So once again, what is the solution? Follow the Constitution. You can't go to war unless there's a declaration. And we do. That is the responsibility of the federal government to have a strong national defense. And if we have an enemy that's attacking us, yes, declare a war, go fight it, win it, and get it over with. But it is a great consumer of wealth, and right now that is what we have to do. We have to do the cutting, which means the war should end. We should start bringing our troops home from around the world. And we can literally save hundreds of billions of dollars, and guess what? You don't have to sacrifice any defense. The way we spend money overseas, bombing and attacking and invading and occupying, we make enemies. What we don't need are more enemies. What we need is more defense. And that means not just pumping money into the military-industrial complex, but pumping money into defense of this country. I've been very pleased. One of the things that I've been most pleased about during the campaign, and this happened even 4 years ago, is the tremendous support we get from the military as well as the veterans. If you look at the donations to our campaign, we get twice as much as all the other candidates put together from active military duties. So they know what's going on. They've been over there. I talked to so many young men and women who have come back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they are not excited about going back for a fourth or a fifth or a sixth or a 30. They know what's going on, and we ought to listen to the veterans because they know that this is a futile exercise, and it's such a payment, not only in life and limb, but in cost. In the last 10 years, we've added over $4 trillion to our national debt to pursue these wars that we can't afford and aren't doing us any good. So this is a very good place to start, and we should be able to bring a lot of people together, left or right or moderates, bring people together and say, if you have to spend the money, spend it at home, not overseas. But also, under conditions of war, people are conditioned, this has been traditional as far back as World War I, it seems like people are too willing to give up their liberties in a time of war. But we also have to remember that all of us who serve, whether it's the military or in Washington, we take an oath of office to defend against all enemies, domestic, foreign and domestic, and so we have to watch who's going to attack our liberties here at home just as well. And that is what's been happening here, the undermining of our personal liberties. I am convinced, as I bet most of you are, that you don't have to and shouldn't sacrifice any liberties for the so-called safety that the government is supposed to provide for us. We do not have to sacrifice that. This is the reason I was a strong opponent to the Patriot Act, and if I have anything to say about it, I'd repeal the Patriot Act. Sometimes things in Washington get passed because of the name, but almost inevitably, if you look at the name of a bill, just say in your mind, well, it's going to do exactly the opposite. They play tricks on us that way. So it wasn't very patriotic to vote for the Patriot Act. And if it had been called repeal the Fourth Amendment Act, nobody would have voted against it. That's what it did. But it's been systematic. That's not the only thing. I mean, we gave up a lot with the Patriot Act. It's continuous. Searches without warrant. Nothing is safe. Privacy at endless. I think symbolically, one of the worst things about doing searches without proper warrant and proper permission is what's happening at our airports. You know, the TSA is not making us safer. It's an abuse, and we shouldn't put up with it. You know, I generally will be quite willing to blame the leadership of both political parties because they have been derelict. Our party, the Republican Party, didn't do a very good job in balancing the budget. So I think there's a lot of blame to go around. But this administration has done some things that very annoying. They certainly haven't done anything to revive the economy. But a couple of things that are very annoying to me is the attack on civil liberties, and of course, he was the individual that would protect civil liberties and bring troops home and whatnot. But what he announced 1 year ago was very annoying. It should have been a warning to us. 1 year ago, he had a representative testify before a Senate committee that said it was now the official policy of the United States government that it could assassinate American citizens without charges and without charge. And to prove his point, he assassinated 3 American citizens. This should not go unnoticed. And of course they say, well, these are bad people. The thing of it is, they weren't all bad people. We don't know. They were suspects. We're not supposed to be assassinated because we're suspect. And now what they're saying, if you're even associated with an organization that is suspect, you can be hauled in. You know, whether it's a website, an organization, a donation, or whatever. You know, the old-fashioned way of being a suspect and proven to be guilty in a court of law is still pretty important, and we need to be able to keep hold on that. The National Defense Authorization Act has not helped it. It further has undermined our... Now it's on the books. It's been codified, even though some of these abuses have been going on. At least they had the common sense to know they were illegal and didn't tell us about it. But it's getting that they're so bold, and they put it into the law. And the law now says that the military can arrest any American citizen, no charges made, and held indefinitely, no trial, and they don't even get an attorney and put off a situation. That is not the kind of America that we want to live in, and we have to deal with that. There was one provision in that bill that went to this extent. Unfortunately, it was caught before it was passed. It said that if an American citizen had been arrested and he was a suspect, a participant in whatever, and he was tried and found innocent, the government could still hold him indefinitely, and the trial meant nothing. I mean, that is it. But there was a certain senator from Kentucky that got that part of the bill removed. But economically, we can't get back on our feet again if we don't get the money returned to the people, which means that we have to greatly reduce the spending and greatly reduce the taxes. We have to defend it from a moral viewpoint. If you have the moral right to your life and the moral right to your liberty, why don't we have the moral right to keep the fruits of our labors? Of course, it's very seductive. Direct taxation is a vicious burden on all of us, but that isn't all. They can borrow money and pass the debt on to another generation, but they also can just print up the money and dilute the money we have, and the people who try to work and save, they get robbed as well. When that happens, countries have done this notoriously many, many times, and every time they do it, they wipe out the middle class. And just look around. What do you think's happened to the middle class in the last 4 years? The prosperity has gone down, the wealth has gone down, the middle class has shrunk, and guess what? There's a characteristic of what happens under these conditions, and the wealth is transferred. It's transferred to a privileged class. And the privileged class are those who benefit from the inflation, those who have influence on Washington, and that's why the lobbyists and the money is so much in control today, and the people have lost control. That is why we need to follow through with this intellectual political revolution that is absolutely necessary. It cannot. How did you know that was my next topic? The Fed will be ended. It'll self-destruct in the near future. But the one thing that everybody ought to agree, a lot of people don't go to the extent of ending the Fed. It sounds like a few of you here would end the Fed like I would. But probably 85% of the American people say, audit the Fed and find out what they've been up to for all these years. You know, during the bailout, this...